And we will start in Afghanistan. The Taliban have registered a violent victory, now with claims on the capital, Kabul. The militant group has also taken control of the Afghan presidential palace. In a video shared by Al Jazeera, Taliban fighters were seen inside the building. A Taliban official said the group will soon declare the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan from the presidential palace in Kabul. That was the name of the country under the Taliban government ousted by US-led forces after the September the 11th attacks of 2001. The Taliban will also change the flag of Afghanistan, replacing it with its own. Calling for peaceful relations with the international community, the Taliban's political spokesman Mohammed Naeem has declared that the war in Afghanistan is over. And he says foreign forces will not repeat their failed experience in Afghanistan again. He insists the Taliban does not want to live in isolation, and the type of rule and the form of regime will become clear soon. Mohammed Naeem claims the group wants to establish peaceful relations and develop channels of communication globally. The Taliban says it will adopt a policy of non-interference in others' affairs in return for non-interference in Afghanistan. Speaking on Ashraf Ghani, Naeem said that Ghani's escape was unexpected, and he said even those close to him did not expect it. President Ashraf Ghani was earlier believed to be in Tajikistan, but is reportedly in Oman right now. He's expected to leave for the United States. National Security Advisor Hamdullah Mahib is in Oman with Ghani. Reports say Tajikistan did not allow Ashraf Ghani's plane to land in Dushanbe. Meanwhile, the Taliban's political team is also expected to reach Kabul today. It's holding talks aimed at forming an inclusive government in Afghanistan. Earlier, a Taliban official said the group would announce a new government from the presidential palace, but those plans appear to be on hold for now. The military units of the Taliban have also entered Kabul to provide security.
I think an Afghan inclusive government, this is the demand, the will and the want of the people of Afghanistan. They want this government that you may have seen that whenever we entered the provincial cities, people thronged along the roads and queued up along the roads, and they were welcoming our forces. So it is a popular uprising. As a result of that, all the provinces fell to us, and because of the support of the people, we were able to have resistance against occupation for 20 years.
وقتو هغه دغه مسؤلیت موږ تاسو نه راځي چې دی لکه اوس موږ تاسو د امتحانو د ازمایښت وخت راغلی ځکه اوس موږ تاسو په دې باندې مبتلا کیږو ځکه ورځ په ورځ به په دې کې موږ اخته کیږو ځکه چې موږ څنګه د خپل ملت خدمت او د خپل ملت امنیت او د دوی د ژوند د زندګۍ او د آرام او په آینده کې د وسیدو اطمینان سره کوم ورکولای شو.
The dramatic scenes in Afghanistan have led several world leaders and diplomats to express their concerns about this huge political shift in the region. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has slammed the Afghan forces for their inability to keep the Taliban in check. Blinken said the international community spent millions to equip the Afghans, but it was all in vain.
I have to tell you that the inability of Afghan security forces to defend their country has played a very powerful role in what we've seen over the last few weeks. The fact is, we invested, the international community invested over 20 years, billions of dollars in these forces, 300,000 of them, with an air force, something the Taliban didn't have, with the most modern, sophisticated equipment. And unfortunately, tragically, they have not been able to defend the country, and I think that explains why this has moved as quickly as it's moved.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the country is heartbroken over the latest developments in Afghanistan.
Good morning. Canada firmly condemns the escalating violence, and we are heartbroken at the situation the Afghan people find themselves in today. This is especially so given the sacrifices of Canadians who believed and continue to believe in the future of Afghanistan. We will continue to work with allies and the international community to ensure that those efforts were not in vain. We are committed to Afghanistan and to the Afghan people.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the US decision to pull its troops out of Afghanistan accelerated the crisis. He's urging countries to avoid prematurely recognising a new government in Afghanistan.
I think it's fair to say that the US decision to pull out has accelerated things, but this has been in many ways something that has been a chronicle of an event foretold. We've known for a long time that this was the way things were going, and as I said before, this is a mission whose military component really ended for the UK in 2014. What we're dealing with now is the very likely advent of a new regime in Kabul.
Boris Johnson has called an unscheduled Parliament session over the crisis. Lawmakers will be recalled from their summer recess to discuss the latest developments in Afghanistan on Wednesday. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas says the seizure of power by the Taliban in Afghanistan is imminent. Maas says the top priority for Germany now is to ensure the security of German nationals and embassy staff in Afghanistan.
Teile der afghanischen Regierung befinden sich bereits im Ausland, haben das Land verlassen und die Machtübernahme der Taliban steht unmittelbar bevor. In dieser Situation muss oberste Priorität die Sicherheit unserer Staatsangehörigen, unserer Mitarbeiterinnen und Mitarbeiter in unserer Botschaft haben und genauso die Menschen, mit denen wir in den letzten Jahren in Afghanistan zusammengearbeitet haben.
United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has tweeted, "I'm deeply concerned about the situation in Afghanistan," he says, and urge Taliban to exercise utmost restraint to protect the lives of people living in Afghanistan. Pope Francis, meanwhile, has called for dialogue to end the conflict in Afghanistan so that its people can live in peace and stability. Extraordinary scenes at Kabul airport. Eyewitness videos have captured the unfolding drama at Kabul International Airport as thousands of Afghans tried to flee after the Taliban captured the city. Helpless Afghan families, including many who were carrying children, surged onto the tarmac trying to board a flight. There were also reports that US troops fired into the air to disperse the crowds. At least 5 people have been killed in the chaos at the airport. The US, UK, Germany, Canada are among countries trying to evacuate all their nationals from the country.
Utter chaos, fear and panic. These visuals of thousands of desperate Afghan nationals are not from the streets of Kabul, but the tarmac of the Hamid Karzai International Airport. With their lives hanging by the thread, this could be the last chance for many Afghan nationals to escape the rule of terror. As Taliban swept Kabul and took over the presidential palace. Thousands, including parents carrying children, barged into the Kabul airport to board flights to flee Afghanistan's beleaguered capital. Some even hanged on to the passenger air bridge. Amidst the pandemonium, US troops at the Kabul airport fired shots in the air, further triggering panic. All commercial flight operations from the Kabul International Airport have been shut. Eyewitness video showed people shouting inside an Istanbul-bound flight that reportedly could not take off. The US Embassy has warned Americans in Afghanistan to shelter in safe places and to not get to the airport. The US has sent 6,000 troops to the airport to fly out embassy personnel as well as Afghan interpreters. US Secretary of State has played down America's hasty exit.
We're working to make sure that our personnel are safe and secure. We're relocating the men and women of our embassy to a location at the airport. It's why the President sent in a number of forces to make sure that as we continue to draw down our diplomatic presence, we do it in a safe and orderly fashion.
UK troops also arrived in Kabul to aid British nationals and diplomats still in the country. Germany has also shuttered its embassy in Kabul and is preparing to send military transport planes to evacuate as many Germans and local Afghan helpers as possible. Over 60 nations have urged the Taliban to allow departure of those who want to leave, including Afghan and international citizens. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Hours before the United Nations Security Council is scheduled to meet, the UN chief is calling for rights to be protected and ensuring that humanitarian needs can be addressed in Afghanistan as well. Antonio Guterres says he's particularly concerned about the future of women and girls, saying their hard-won rights must be guaranteed. The United Nations Security Council meeting on Afghanistan will be held later. Guterres is expected to report on the situation in the country at the meeting. It's been requested by Estonia and Norway, the two non-permanent members of the Security Council. Russia has also said the situation in Afghanistan required immediate intervention of the UN Security Council. Ghulam Isaksai, Afghanistan's UN ambassador, has said that a message has been sent to the Council to do everything to prevent further violence and ensure an orderly move to a transitional government. T.S. Tirumurti, ambassador of India to the United Nations, says the Indian presidency will convene the briefing and consultations on Afghanistan today. Moving away from Afghanistan, and the death toll from a devastating earthquake in Haiti has risen to 1,297. Rescue operations are still on as workers scramble to find survivors buried under the rubble. The Caribbean island was hit by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake on Sunday.
Roads caved in. Houses destroyed. Buildings flattened. And nearly 1,300 people dead. A devastating 7.2 magnitude earthquake hit the Caribbean island nation of Haiti.
Là, nous dénombrons 1297 morts.
We have recorded 1,297 deaths, 1,054 in the south, 119 in Grand Anse, 122 in Nipis, and 2 in the Northeast Department. We have recorded 5,700 injured in the different departments I just mentioned. In total, 13,694 homes were destroyed by the earthquake. 30,000 families lost their homes.
The southwestern region of Haiti bore the brunt of the tremors, especially in and around the city of Les Cayes.
When I arrived in the south of the country, we saw the destruction. Many houses are destroyed. Rescue teams are working to find victims and survivors in the rubble. One thing I noticed was the dignity of the people despite the situation. They are affected but resilient. They fight to survive.
Rescue workers scrambled to find survivors under the rubble. The rescue efforts became more complicated by the arrival of Tropical Storm Grace. The disaster has left Haiti hospitals overwhelmed. Some 5,700 people have been injured. Churches, hotels, hospitals and schools were badly damaged, many of them completely destroyed. As per the Civil Protection Agency, over 13,000 houses have been destroyed. US President Joe Biden said that he was saddened by this catastrophe. The US Coast Guard airlifted injured residents, including babies, of the island nation. The United Nations said that a humanitarian corridor through Haiti's gang-infested areas must be established so aid can flow to the affected regions. Colombia and Mexico sent medical aid, food and rescuers to Haiti. Colombia dispatched 2 Air Force planes carrying 14 tons of vital supplies. The Dominican Republic and Mexico rushed food and medicines. The island nation, which is still clawing its way back from another major earthquake 11 years ago, has long been politically unstable as well. The health crisis is now raging against the backdrop of scarce medical resources. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Residents of a Greek seaside village are mourning a lost paradise. There are tears and anger as residents deal with the aftermath of a devastating wildfire which burned for 9 days straight.
Residents of the Greek seaside village of Rovies returned home to find destroyed buildings, debris and ashes after 9 days of raging wildfires. Among them was 72-year-old Kostas Konstantinidis, a former pastry cook.
My wife and I worked hard for many years to build this so we could enjoy it in our old age, and now we must start again from the beginning.
In Rovies, as in other villages across the island, residents said the government failed to protect their homes and the forest. Soteria Kalaboka is 87 years old.
I am just a grandmother. From the beginning, the aeroplanes did not come to drop water, to act. I don't want to criticize anyone, but the truth is that they forgot about us.
Kotsias Trasivulos, a beach cafe owner in Pefki on the other side of the island, said firefighters were a big help, but that without air units at first, they could not tackle the fire. A fire brigade official said he understood people who had lost their homes were upset, but said firefighters had done all they could. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis publicly apologized for the delays in the firefighting efforts on Thursday. He announced a €500 million relief package while defending his government's action. That appeared to offer little comfort to residents. 55-year-old Zoe Kharasti owned a pastry shop in Rovies and had lived above the shop for the past 38 years. She was overwhelmed by sadness and anger when she returned to see what remained of her business. She said starting again may be too hard and too expensive.
And Greece is far from alone. From the United States to the Mediterranean, several countries across the world have been battling raging wildfires. Climate change is considered to be a key factor in increasing the risk and extent of the wildfires.
Raging wildfires in Spain's central Avila province forced hundreds of people to flee their homes. The fire, which has been burning in the city of Navalacruz since Saturday, has been fed by winds of up to 70 kilometers an hour. Over 5,000 hectares of land has been burnt. Another fire near El Raso has also been active. 12 firefighting aircraft have also been fighting a blaze in Azuba in eastern Spain. Other parts of Spain also sweltered under crushing temperatures. A wildfire blazed in the hills of West Jerusalem. According to emergency services, several Sol-outlying communities have been evacuated. Firefighting planes and crews on the ground were battling the flames that were visible from the main highway linking Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. A bushfire is moving fast in the US state of Utah. Officials have issued evacuation orders for thousands of residents. Wildfires have impacted 2,500 acres of land. Utah Governor Spencer Cox has said the wildfire is big and dangerous. According to County Sheriff, some residents refuse to leave, which slowed down the firefighting efforts. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has authorized the use of federal funds to fight the blaze. 1 month after it began, the Dixie Fire in North California continues to rage. The enormous fire has burned through over 540,000 acres of land, making it by far the largest and the most destructive of 11 wildfires burning across California. The Dixie Fire broke out on 14th of July in Sierra Nevada mountains, some 260 kilometers northeast of Sacramento. So far, 31% of it has been contained.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called for federal elections 2 years ahead of schedule. Trudeau asked citizens to vote for real progressive leadership and healthcare. Justin Trudeau is expecting to gain a majority and is betting that high vaccination rates and post-pandemic economic growth will help him strengthen his grip on power.
This is a really important moment in Canada's history.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Sunday called an early election for September 20th, saying he needed a new mandate to ensure voters approved of his Liberal government's plan to recover from the health crisis.
As Canadians know, this is a moment where we're going to be taking decisions that will last not just for the coming months, but for the coming decades. And Canadians deserve their say. That's exactly what we're going to give them.
Trudeau is betting that high vaccination rates and an economic rebound will help him prolong and strengthen his position as Prime Minister. Newly released data shows 71% of the country's eligible population is fully vaccinated. Trudeau spoke after visiting Governor General Mary Simon, the representative of Head of State Queen Elizabeth, to formally request the dissolution of Parliament. Polls suggest the Liberals will win their third consecutive election, but may not regain a majority in the House of Commons. Trudeau currently has only a minority of seats, leaving him reliant on other parties to govern. The Conservatives and New Democrats have in recent days condemned the idea of an early election, saying there was no need for it and describing Trudeau's call as a power grab. A parliamentary majority would give Trudeau the ability to follow through on his priorities of fighting climate change and supporting those who suffered most during the health crisis.
And that is all we have time for on this edition of WION Live Broadcast. Thanks for being with us. For more global news and updates, do stay tuned to WION. World is One.